Hello, world. It's me, Maria, from the Fox 11 Newsroom here in Los Angeles. And joining me this morning is Dr. Marvin Thompson. He is the no nonsense principal over at a high school in New Orleans,
In
right?
New
Is it
Orleans.
McDonough?
John McDonough High School.
John McDonough High School. And Dr. Marvin is on a new documentary series that's airing rather on the OWN TV network. And it's really compelling TV series. I was just watching a little bit of it, and it's incredible. This is truly a look into our educational system here in this country. And we often ask questions, like what is going on? Why is this happening? And this series is a great look into what really happens. And I applaud you for bring that into the open. We're going to quickly talk about that. We're going to quickly introduce you to these guys here, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So let me introduce you to Trev. This is Trev. He's hanging out with us from England right now.
Hello.
He's in Yorkshire.
Good morning.
Seher is in Virginia.
My home.
Oh, okay. And then Randy is in the southern part of France. He's
Hello.
in Bordeaux. We've got Kim,
Bonjour.
who's in St. Louis.
Bonjour.
No,
and
Kansas City.
Justin is
Kansas
also
City.
he's in Brighton. Jimmy is here locally. Yay, somebody from LA. Koreatown.
How you doing? Good
And
morning.
we've got Deanna, who's in Reno.
Yeah. Morning.
And we've got a bunch of people watching us as well on air. Say, hey, you guys, make sure you share the link, okay, and let everybody know that we are on air. Thanks so much. All right, Dr. Thompson, let's talk about your show on the OWN network and talk about your high school a little bit. For those who are not familiar with the show, when did it start airing, and really, what is it about?
Well, the show aired last Saturday, and the John McDonough is a 9 through 12 high school that was actually slated to be closed, and they were phasing out all of the grade levels. So Steve
This is in New Orleans.
This is in New Orleans, and
affected greatly by the waters there with the hurricane.
Well, overall, all of the schools in New Orleans were affected negatively by the hurricane. Prior to Katrina, the average high school had about 1,500 students in it. Now, the average high school, roughly, we all struggle to meet, to get 500 students in our schools.
Oh, wow.
So the impact on the population has had a huge impact on not only the number of students, but also the quality of education, particularly when you have a proliferation of charter schools in the city, which has caused some angst in the community.
I don't know if you guys saw that clip that I sent to you, but I just saw a little bit about the violence in our school. I mean, these are our children. These are our kids.
Right.
And how do you, as an educator, as a principal, how do you deal with that?
You know, that question to me is always answered by looking at our society as a whole. These kids don't create and don't become violent on their own. They're models out here. And John McDonough and New Orleans is only one city, but there's a lot of John McDonoughs around the nation. And the violence that comes into our schools is really indicative of the communities from which these young people come from. So our schools, on one hand, we've always been the catch-all for what happens in our communities. And this is just a catch-all of the New Orleans community.
Well, it's interesting. I know you've turned it around.
We're working on it.
You're working on it. And if you guys have questions, just get my attention and I will go to you for sure. Go ahead, Kim. What's your question?
In working in the school district in New Orleans, what other school districts have you worked in before that, and how do you compare your experience between previous schools and the one you're in now?
That's a good question, Kim. I've started out as a 5th grade teacher, and I've been a superintendent, and I've done all of that in the last 20 years in rural, urban, and suburban communities. I spent the last 5 years working as a consultant, going around the country, working in those various communities. Actually, I was here in Los Angeles several years ago, working at Los Angeles High School and Hollenbeck Middle School. So that's not new to me. Prior to that, I also served as a consultant for the state of Virginia, actually going in and turning around their lowest and most challenged schools. So coming to John McDonough wasn't a new stretch for me. What I found that was new was the level of need compared to any of the other places I'd ever been, and how magnified that need was. I mean, I could take my 20 years experience encapsulated into John McDonough, and that's how significant some of the issues are.
Wow.
Fred, did you have a question?
Just a comment. I saw I don't know if it was the clip that you posted, but I saw
there's basically the first 5 minutes of the first episode on some website that I saw. And that what you're doing is just, I think there is nothing more important, nothing at all more important than educating kids. And what you're doing is unbelievable. It's amazing. So I just want to say I massively respect you for what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's important for everybody to remember. And I don't want to minimize, but I'm just the principal. I have 20-some other teachers and about another 15 support staff who actually do the heavy lifting. You know, the way I look at my role is to prepare and set the table for them to do the wonderful work that they do. Because when it's all said and done, when we look at positive results, it's going to be because of their efforts, probably more so than mine. I'm a stage setter and a table setter, but other than that, the real work is theirs.
Well, you've gathered the right people, definitely. Justin, did you have a question?
Yes. How on earth do you start? Because you've got all the pupils there, you've got staff that are already established. How, you know, just walking into a situation like that and then making headway or starting to get things roll, I wouldn't even know how to begin doing something like that. I'm amazed.
Yeah, where do you begin? I mean, it's like you one room at a time, or one student. I mean, like, where do you begin? Yeah,
you just said it. It's one student at a time, and I think, Justin, you have to start with a vision and know exactly what you want it to walk like and talk like when you're finished. You know, and that's what I did. When I went in, I started with students' will, teachers' will, and started asking them, you know, this is what we need to do. What's it going to look like? What are the behaviors that we need to have? What are the academic, what's instruction going to look like? Which is where we are now. We're now able, after 4.5 months, to have those discussions now about good. Let's start moving to talking a little bit more about what good teaching looks like. Because we spent 4 months really correcting and changing behaviors.
Just behavior,
right. So to answer your question, Justin, real simply, it's a vision that is articulated and really stuck and adhered to. You know, the things that I say have to be consistent with that vision. And if they're not consistent with that vision, you know, we can really just wander all over the place.
My question is, well, a couple of things. Parents, how are they involved? Are they around? And two, how did you, how were you approached about the documentary and the series and having cameras around while you're doing this?
Let's start with the parents. And I think what I'm about to say about our John McDonough parents, you will find this data to be consistent around the country. When parents are heavily involved when their kids are in elementary school.
Right.
When they start to get to middle school, it tapers off, and then in high school, they just disappear. So I would not want to indict or criticize the parents at my school because they fall into the same pattern that all of them do. I'm an educator, and I think I went to 3 parent conferences during my kids' high school career.
Yes, I'm guilty of it as well.
We all are.
Yeah.
And what makes this unique here is that these young people have a great need. The current status is I've seen more parents in the last 2.5 months than I saw in the first 3.
That's great.
So they are coming in. We've had meetings in the evenings about attendance, and parents are actually coming in and showing interest. I think the school has a responsibility too. We have to reach out to them and inform them and communicate and give them opportunities. So it's a two-way street.
Exactly. How about the cameras? How did you feel when you were approached?
I was approached by, you know, I shared earlier on the show that I knew that there was a chance. I think every teacher who was hired was aware that this was a chance, but we thought it was slim, and we didn't really focus on it because we all came with the mission of turning around this school. So on a Wednesday afternoon, I get a phone call that says, hey, cameras are going to be in your school on Monday. And I went, okay, let's do this. So on that very first day, I'll be the first one to admit, I looked like I had just stared into Medusa, like a stone. And
we get that way still, like a deer, like in front of us, with the headlights. Yeah.
And my teachers, what brought me back to reality, I had a faculty meeting, and I like my faculty meetings to be very open and laid back, and I like to inject some humor, but this particular day I didn't, and when it was over, they told me about it. They said, hey, where'd the Dr. T we know went? And I went, wow, that really happened. So when I realized that it was having that impact on them, I just had to say, you know what, whatever we do, we do. The job is the job, and let the chips fall where they may.
That's a really
I have a question.
attitude to have. Yes, Kim.
I love the fact that you look at your team as a team, and Did it take a long time for you to get everyone on the same playing field in the sense of team-minded and not just out for themselves, or without
That's
having to care that much for the children? You know, because I know in teaching in schools, you can have a variety of attitudes from teachers.
Kim, that is an excellent question, and it's really about capacity building and in an environment that we're in. Everybody comes from a different place, and they all have their own experiences, and they all have their own perceptions. My job as a leader is to frame those. And yes, there's always going to be those who disagree, those who have conflict, those who are stuck in their perceptions, and in some cases, they come from places where they haven't been driven by a team concept, and that's how I look through it. Overall, I have been very pleased with how collegial my staff is, but I did something I thought was really critical in the hiring process. I look for people who had passion. I look for people who cared, because first and foremost, if in this profession, you have to be someone, you have to be motivated to give of yourself. It's not about you. And the moment it becomes about you, it's not about the kids anymore. So that to me makes it very easy when people have angst about where they are. It's very easy to tell where their motives are.
Jimmy, did you have a question?
Yes, I know that a lot of times it's easy to get people on board initially, but when they start to not see the results that you're looking for, the results that they're looking for, and they start to lose that focus and lose that passion, how do you deal with the teachers on that end of it when they start to not have the same passion anymore, if that happens?
Good question, Jimmy. It kind of goes with what Kim was asking. One of the strategies that I found to be the most successful, and research really speaks to this, is when you can involve people in the change process and give them a voice to the change process along some standards. A lot of the things that we're asking kind of go away. We haven't had a real strong opportunity to do that because we've been so heavily involved with just setting a tone for it. I just added 2 new deans and a new director of curriculum instruction about 2 months ago. So we're now moving into the phase where I'm setting up committees and putting the issues that we need to address in front of those committees. Now I get to guide some of those committees through teachers' ideals, and then empowering them to come up with strategies. And my job now becomes the evaluator of their ideas and the facilitator of resources to make them move. And when people feel like they're a part of the change, don't feel like it, but they know where they fit. They can look and point to exactly what they've done to make a difference in that school. Now you have, and I hate the word buy-in, but you have, I think it's more about commitment. Buy-in is selling. I'm not selling anything. We're committing to something. I never even use the word buy-in. That's where you get deeper commitment to people, and we get to have a self-actualized organization, which is what we're after.
Ultimately, what do you want to come out of having the show aired on TV?
Well,
what do you want people to take away from it?
I think I like for viewers to realize that this is not a John McDonough New Orleans issue. That this is an issue that is a national issue. There are thousands of John McDonoughs in our larger cities. And it's not, in my view, and from my experience, it's not just about teaching and learning. It obviously is what schools are meant to do. But if these schools exist with these issues, there are societal issues that we haven't yet addressed that definitely impact our ability to reach our goal, which is to educate every child to their fullest. So I'm hoping that a national dialogue in these areas and communities like this one actually forces our societies and those powers that be to really begin to not talk about it anymore.
A real dialogue with actions and results.
A dialogue that results in improved outcomes for these young people.
Well, some powerful stuff on that show. Definitely, I'm interested to see more. Hey, you guys, thanks so much. That's going to have to be it with Dr. Marvin Thompson.
Thank you all.
Be sure to check out the show. It's on the OWN TV network. It's called Blackboard Wars. Wow. Blackboard Wars in our schools. Anyway, thanks so much for hanging out. Will you take a quick photo?
Thank you very much.
Sure, be happy to.
Here's
Thank
the
you
camera
all.
right here.
Thank you.
Do I smile?
Sure you can. Look it right there. Okay. Cheese.
Cheese.
Yay.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Sweet.
Now, do you tweet and Facebook and
I do.
that? You do.
We
what
do.
What is your
I don't know. I'm kidding. I have to write it, otherwise it's...
anywhere up
Yeah.
here is good.
Okay.
This was cool.
It was very
Um,
informative.
Right. This is
Yeah, you know,
and
like I said
Facebook
before, I would be afraid to go back
is-
into the school systems,
Yeah, no, I
even
hear
at the elementary age.
I think it's LLC.
I mean, the things that
It's
the things that the
empower
teachers face
And
nowadays.
underscore
Yeah.
ED.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's
So
gotten rougher
actually- so
nowadays.
you
It's just
could
gotten
you
rougher.
put the ampersand on the other
Mhm.
side.
I don't do it.
I
Listen,
did.
I don't do Twitter.
You're an educator.
I
You're
don't
an
even
educator.
I don't
That's
even
okay.
watch the news. Tell her I don't watch the news.
It's depressing sometimes.
I spent 10 years. Yeah, and I'm happier. I don't watch the news and I don't read newspapers.
Really?
Mm-mm.
How do you get your information?
Talking to people. That makes me listen to them.
See, I'm not the only one who doesn't read
Wow.
newspapers
Pleasure
I
to
don't
meet
read
you.
newspapers
watch
either.
the news.
Yes, ma'am.
When I watch the news, that's how I see these. Yeah.
The news is social media. If you want the proper news, that's where you get it from. If you want, you spoon fed what the
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
Trev. Exactly.